Good evening. I would like to call to order the February 9th, 2010 meeting of the Milton School Committee. Please join me in saluting the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll begin by approving tonight's agenda. Are there any changes that school committee members would like to make? Mrs. Kelly?
I wanted to add the discussion of the NESDEC Temple Shalom projection. I guess I don't know how to describe it. NESDEC did a projections on potential housing development at the Temple site, and this is produced on behalf of the Milton Public Schools, so I thought that we needed to at least discuss it.
Do we all have a copy of that?
I don't know. I had given it out or I think we had made some copies this morning or yesterday morning at the Finance Subcommittee meeting.
Okay, I don't think I got that.
I'll make copies
If you could do that, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Sorry.
Is that going under the Finance Subcommittee report?
We can, wherever we would like it to go, wherever you would like it to go.
Sure. That's
Yep.
great, under there.
Okay.
Mhm. Any other changes or additions? So,
Move the agenda as corrected.
give a second.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, it's unanimous, thank you. Do we have anyone for citizen speak tonight? No. Okay, we'll move into the school committee minutes from January 19th, 2010. I'll entertain a motion to approve these minutes.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion?
Do we have the corrected copy? I talked to, Byrne wasn't added, so we need to remove his name from the minutes.
I believe that is in this,
Copy?
No. Well, it's not in,
oh no, he is still in this one. Okay, so we need to remove Byrne Lovely from this. Good catch. Any other corrections?
Nope.
Okay. All in favor? With those corrections, it's unanimous. Thank you. And we'll move into the superintendent's report, Ms. Gormley. Everyone, I'm sure at home, is waiting to hear about the status of school tomorrow, so maybe you can begin with that.
Thank you, Chairman Sheridan. We have a scheduled early release day tomorrow for parent-teacher conferences. And so networking with area superintendents, many are going to schedule half-days. We're always hesitant in the Milton Public Schools to schedule half-days because of daycare situations, but we have a scheduled day. All the parents knew when the school calendar was issued that it was a half-day. So working with DPW and checking the weather all day, tomorrow will be a half-day, the scheduled half-day, and all parent-teacher conferences tomorrow have been canceled. So afternoon, after school, and evening parent-teacher conferences tomorrow are canceled. We sent an email blast via the phone and the emails to every parent in Milton Public Schools. I would ask if any parent did not receive those communications to call my office, because that will mean that we're missing your email information. And we contact over 5,000 people. Parents will be contacted about rescheduling the parent-teacher conferences. If something should happen tonight and the storm should change, and we'll check the weather all during the night, I suggest the parents, again, we'll send another email blast out, but they should check the website and the TV channels as of 5 in the morning if we ever had to cancel school all day and the storm paced up and came in earlier. But there will be a half a day of school tomorrow for all students within the Milton Public Schools, all athletics, PM half-day kindergarten, afternoon preschool, clubs, activities, sign up for adult education, music lessons are all canceled. Everything as of noon tomorrow in the Milton Public Schools is canceled.
Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you, Chairman Sheridan. We'd like to invite to join us here this evening from the Milton Foundation. Would you like to come up? We have parents, administrators, teachers, and once they get up here, we'll do the introductions. So you can connect the names with the faces.
That's great. Pull that chair back.
But you're using it to block people out.
We have tireless worker volunteers in the Milton Public Schools, but the Milton Foundation is a unique group of volunteers, and the fundraising and the enrichment and enhancement they give to Milton Public School students, teachers, and staff is really extraordinary. And I always say to the Milton Foundation, they're really selfless, and I say you should connect the names with the faces. So the Milton Foundation, Leslie Collins is here tonight, parent and chairperson of the grant program. And Leslie is going to explain the process, the amount of money that's given out in grants. And I asked Leslie to bring the individuals, teachers, administrators who have submitted a successful creative grant, bring them here tonight so that the viewing public, again, can connect Leslie Collins with the Milton Foundation, hear from her about a very interesting process that they've perfected on the MFE in awarding their grants, and to recognize Dr. Karen Spalding, Ms. Bertrand, and Ms. Gilbert here tonight to explain one of their grants. So with your pleasure, I'll turn this over to Leslie Collins and the staff.
Thank you very much for having us tonight. As you said, my name is Leslie Collins. I'm on the Foundation for Education, and I've had children in all elementary through high school levels of the school system. And first, I'd just like to say thank you. These grants are only possible due to the ongoing support of our donors and sponsors. Without that ongoing fundraising and giving to the foundation, we couldn't do this for the kids. But the grant program is small grants, on average around $1,000, that the teachers submit to. We do it twice a year, and twice a year we give out between $10,000 and $20,000 depending on what we get in for applications. The teachers fill out an application that's about 3 pages long with what they want to do and how it's going to enrich the classroom. Excuse me. Our goal is to, what we're looking for is sort of above and beyond the curriculum, what can enrich or be the creative thinking that the teachers are so wonderful at, the extras that the curriculum can't provide for. So they submit the application, and a team of us read them all, and it's both members of the foundation and peers. So it's one teacher from each school will read them, and that's invaluable, having the teacher's input on what really works for the classrooms. This past fall of '09, we awarded 24 grants that were across all 6 schools, every discipline, and it was very exciting. We actually had 39 applications, which was huge. We were able to grant a total of $20,075, and the teachers have already, I'm getting emails back, they're starting to spend the money, which is great. I'm not going to take the time to read all the teachers because there are often 2 or 3 authors, and it's just so many. It's wonderful. But on our website, which is miltonfoundationforeducation.org, there is a chart with the school, the teacher, and a little blurb about what the grant is about. So please go on and look and see what your child's teachers are doing or what's happening in your child's schools. I think that's kind of my piece. Any questions?
I just want to say one thing. If people don't remember what the website is, there is a link from the Milton Public Schools homepage that people can access it from. So
Thank you.
I encourage people to check it out because it's a great website too.
If I might add, often when we have staff applying to be mentors or for administrative positions, they've often added to their resume that they've been awarded an MFE grant. And so I've told the MFE board that a tremendous amount of pride comes with being awarded these grants. And to our staff and administrators, they put a tremendous amount of time into writing these grants, and the MFE has a very high bar. We've gone through this for several years, and working out the application process. Now the applications are in line, and the virtue of the whole process is the selection process is by a group of their peers. So it's not the MFE in isolation, or Mary Gormley and John Phelan and Matt Gillis deciding who's going to be awarded the grants. And when you go into those classrooms, really enrichment, creative, the ideas, and to the MFE board's credit, at their board meetings, they discuss every one of the grants, and they share, and members ask questions when the announcement of the awards are being made. So I often think the $20,000 each round that you give out really is multiplied by really thousands and thousands of dollars with the pride and the ideas and the programming and the instruction that these funds really instill in a classroom. And as of today, when these awards were given out at the beginning of the year, that's money that building principals wouldn't have to give to the teachers. So these supplies and ideas and programming are very, very important, again, to improve and increasing student achievement and to improving in instruction.
Mr. Huban?
The MFE has done wonderful things as far as raising money for the schools, and the grant process. We've been through it many times. It's interesting some of the things that the teachers will come up with to use that money for. One question that I'm asked that I don't have the answer to, and I probably should, of the money that's raised in a given year, what percentage of that is awarded in grants? If you were to raise $100,000, is $30,000 given out? Is it 30%? Is it 80%?
Typically, our goal is to give out, for the grants, $40,000 a year, $20,000 in the spring and $20,000 in the fall. So the percentage really depends on how successful our fundraising is.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other monies are, so that the grant amount has been kind of a set dollar amount rather than a percentage. And then from our total fundraising, we are currently funding the district grant writer. Am I saying the right title?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
The grant writer, we're paying his salary at this point in time. And then the balance of the fundraising goes through the celebration, whether it's for a specific department or principal's choice or whatever it is for that year.
Mm-hmm.
So the money does all go back to the schools, just in a variety of venues.
Good. That's what I wanted to get out. I figured that, but I just wanted people to know that the money that comes in gets put back into the schools that same year or very close to that same year.
Absolutely.
And that's
And our
an
treasurer
important.
is wonderful that if it's not within a year or two, she's sort of on the phone, like, why aren't you spending your money?
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
And I just want to speak to that a little bit more, Mr. Huban, because I've had the pleasure of sitting on the MFE board for the past 3 years, and I just think it's amazing what they do in terms of fundraising. And Leslie, when you spoke about the donors, it's not just big outside donors. I mean, when we talk about donors, we're talking about parents, we're talking about community members, we're talking about a variety of ways that people give to the foundation. They give not only through going to the Celebration for Education, but also through the annual pledge drive, by going to the Sam Cicchello race, Monster Dash, in October. So there are ongoing ways that people participate and help. So donors, large and small, donations, large and small. So thank you. Ms. Dagligo.
I wanted to just add to that, too, that everybody on the Milton Foundation board is a volunteer.
Absolutely.
There are no paid staff, which is pretty amazing that you raise this kind of money. And since these folks came, I'm wondering if they could tell us which project of theirs got funded. Just because they're here, and I'd love to hear.
That's what they have.
Oh, that's next, okay. I thought you were done, sorry. Questions?
Just on the fundraising, the Sam Cicchello Fund, is that done on submit a grant and get funded as well, or is that done in coordination with Ms. Blonsky?
It's in coordination with Ms. Blonsky and the specific science needs of the school system.
As a matter of fact, she made a presentation just last night at the foundation meeting. It was amazing, talking about all the things that she's purchasing and
Yeah.
working with.
I want to go back to elementary school because they've got lots of fun stuff coming up.
They do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, I just want to echo, reiterate all of what's been said. The generosity in terms of either funds or time or energy, all of that is greatly appreciated. And this whole idea of giving teachers an opportunity to write grants is certainly on the surface, we think, oh, I can get some stuff for my classroom. But really what it is on even a deeper level is an opportunity to really develop as a professional and to have conversations with your colleagues. I've been thinking about this. What do you think about this? As they sort of formulate those ideas. And then while implementing the grants, again, having this sort of professional conversation about good teaching and learning. And so there are so many levels of benefits for a program like this. And finally, the added benefit, which I experienced myself as a teacher when I would write grants, is it's really kind of nerve-wracking to submit a grant, and you might lack a little confidence, and I think it's a great idea, but will anybody else think it's a great idea? And the level of confidence and efficacy that results by actually getting a grant and someone else saying, you know what, that is a good idea. That's a fabulous idea, and we're going to give you the funds to do it. And that boost of confidence then makes you think, well, maybe I have another idea that people will listen to as well. And so the benefits, again, certainly getting the stuff, because the stuff is, the kinds of teaching and learning that we want to do, especially in science in this case. You need materials to do that and to do those creative ideas. And so it's wonderful to have that, but there are so many other levels of benefits as well. So our project that we're embarking on, the title brings about a few chuckles. So it's called Harry's Inheritance. And we will be doing this in the 8th grade. So we have Jen Gilbert, 8th grade teacher, science teacher at the Pierce, as well as Kathy Bertrand, 8th grade science teacher at the Pierce, and Jill Markarian, our 3rd 8th grade teacher, would absolutely be here if she could. And we are, the learning standards for 8th grade include standards about genetics and natural selection. And so we are going to use Wisconsin fast plants, which they're called fast plants because they are fast, and they go from seed to seed in 40 days. And that's a fantastic benefit when you are trying to teach a lot of things in a short amount of time. And so these particular plants have a whole variety of traits that one can observe and record data about. And one just happens to be the number of hairs on the leaves. And so that's a quantifiable trait that absolutely always gets a few chuckles. And there's other traits like height of the plant and things like that students could decide to investigate. And so they will, across the whole 8th grade, plant their Wisconsin fast plants, collect data about the growth, look at the number of hairs on the first true leaf, and make what we call a frequency distribution, which is sort of a graph of the numbers of plants that have 5 hairs or 4 hairs or 3 hairs or whatever the case may be. And then they will artificially select the hairiest plants, the ones that have the most numbers of hairs on the first true leaf, and actually pollinate those and take them to the next generation and look at how that trait then expresses itself in the next generation of plants. And the value in this is absolutely that kids can collect their own data and do science as scientists do, which is absolutely key, and come up certainly with all kinds of other questions and other traits they can pursue and things like that. And so we will have conversations within our existing structure in the curriculum meetings, have conversations about how things are going and looking at student work and things like that. And what's really fantastic about all 3 8th grade science teachers doing this together is kids can also start to build some understanding of statistics and probability, in that the bigger sample size you have, the closer it gets to what you would predict would happen theoretically. And so there are many different levels that kids can build understanding with, and so we're excited.
So Jennifer, Kathy?
Yeah, I was really excited about it. We're thinking of an idea for a grant, and I was thinking that a lot of science we do, we have a lot of ability to collect data, which is nice, and I like to do a lot in my classroom. But with the genetics unit, it gets tough because we're talking DNA and alleles and little stuff, and there's a lot of activities that you can sort of mimic what's going on, and it's nice and it's fun and the kids like it, but sort of those authentic opportunities where you can actually run an experiment, collect real data, analyze that data, I thought was difficult in that unit. And then I talked to Karen, and she said, oh, we used to do this at another school, and that's the only way that I can, remember that we've collected data, and so just sort of putting those ideas together, and I felt like that was sort of the only, I feel like we can collect data in a lot of our other units, but we're really looking for some authentic data collection, and honestly, a great way to do it, so I'm excited, because I always felt like that was a little bit missing, but, yeah, it's exciting.
Right. And then what we've asked the teachers to do as they're doing things is to take pictures of the kids with their plants, with their, across the board, all of the, the teachers who got books, take pictures of the kids sitting on the rugs reading, so that they can all be on our website and in our archives.
That's great. Ms. Bagley-Jones?
One of the things that really stands out to me is all of the different kinds of things that you're doing with these grants. I see that there's some special ed classes that are getting some things, but also in addition, there are plays to break down the Odyssey, and listening centers and all these other things that aren't, robotics teams, all these things that aren't necessarily just books and open the book, but hands-on stuff, which is really great. Really great for our kids, not just in our special ed classes, but for all kids.
That's
There's
something I
some
find
different
really
things.
exciting. We really do have grants from science and the
Yeah.
humanities and math, all of the, there's a math one, there's English, there's everything,
Right,
all the disciplines are covered.
right. It's beautiful.
There's some, music, and I don't know if there's an art one this cycle, but there frequently are.
Yeah.
Um,
And often, these grants are replicated district-wide. But to Kathy Bertrand and Jennifer Gilbert, when we go by your classrooms, there's always science going on, and it's alive. And this is above and beyond the school day for you to do this. And as Dr. Spalding said, to put yourselves out there. You represent all the teachers who write those grants. And I'm very, very proud when they're awarded, and the community should be proud of the work you do. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Nice. Thank you so much for
Thank you for
doing
having
this.
us.
Thank you.
Next tonight, we have Mr. Huban had asked to report out on our technology plan, our technology report. So our network administrator, Bob Patterson, is here with us this evening. In your packets, and I believe online you received the technology plan. Bob's going to present some highlights and goals and what we need and what we've achieved in the Milton Public Schools, and then he's available for questions and answers. Thank you, Bob.
Hello, everybody. I just came today to talk to you a little bit about the technology plan and the technology plan update that we have to file with the state every year, and the difference between the two. First of all, the technology plan, which is right here, which I think you all have a copy of. It's a 3 to 5 year plan that is designed.
Bob, can you pull that mic a little closer
Sure.
for the hard of hearing?
It's a 3 to 5 year plan that's designed to be in alignment with the school's improvement plan, and it's giving goals, the implementation of the plan, the integration, evaluation, and it's also required to get E-rate funding from the federal government. And in designing the plan, there are guidelines that are to be followed from the state as well. So I go benchmark by benchmark and, just align it all with the benchmarks from the state. The tech plan update, which is different, is basically, it's a state level report, and it's just the status of your technology plan and its implementation for the past year. And they use the data that's gathered from that to come up with all the numbers, student to computer ratios,
All of those numbers that you see on all the state reports, this is where all that data comes from. And again, that is mandatory to be eligible for E-rate as well. And this was actually just filed last week.
Excuse me, would you mind explaining what E-rate is, please?
E-rate, yes, it's a federally funded program. You know, on your phone bill, you see the FCC charge, and, you know, no one really knows what it is or why it's there. But they collect that from everybody and put it into a giant bucket of money. And then through the Schools and Libraries Division, you apply to get reimbursement for telecommunications, internet access, equipment, things of that nature. And it's based, your level of reimbursement is based on the level of poverty in your town. Currently, we get 41% back. And that's gone up. It was originally 40, and we're up to 41%. So last year, we got approximately $37,000 back from internet access reimbursement, phone, and web hosting.
Thank you.
Some of the highlights from that outlined in the technology plan. In the past few years, we've installed an SES connection, which is it's an internet connection that's different than broadband or a T1. It's greater capacity and scalability because we're just seeing such an explosion in the use of the technology with the teaching every day. Everybody is so dependent on it. And, today we had a little interruption for 10, 15 minutes in the connection through Verizon. My phone rings off the hook. So this just provides us with greater accessibility and speed. All the computer labs have an LCD projector and smart board. We've installed computerized point-of-sale systems in all the cafeterias, which has really helped Jackie Morgan with all the free and reduced lunch issues and making it, anonymous and things like that. The Alert Now system, you've all seen it, and heard it, used and seen its benefits. It's fantastic. The library automation in all the buildings. Email archival, that was a federal mandate that all email has to be archived for so many years. We have a new firewall that keeps us in compliance with the Children's Internet Protection Act. We've replaced a couple of servers. Actually, last week we had 2 fail in 1 week, which was unheard of. The Pierce Middle School last year installed a writing lab. We have a tapeless backup system for the entire district, which we've actually had to use in the last week. The prevalent use of smart boards, and just recently the progress reports and report cards being sent by email home has been pretty huge as well. And then this slide here is just kind of where Milton stands in relation to a report from the state on the recommendations of technology. And you can see that in some areas we're doing pretty well, in a lot of areas we're not. As far as staffing for technology integration, the state recommends 1 full-time employee per 80 teachers. Currently we have 0. Computers to student ratio is very good. They recommend 5 to 1, and we're at about 3.5 to 1, which is great, but there's another side to that too, which I'll get to. The average PC replacement policy, they recommend 4.5 years, and we are 6 to 7 years, if not more in some cases. For technical support, which really doesn't include me, this is the technicians in the field, they recommend 1 full-time employee per 200 computers. We have about 1,150 computers, 2 technicians. So, ideally, we should have almost 6 full-time people to support the equipment that we currently have. They recommend an IT director. Here I am. They recommend one network administrator, which we do not have, which was not replaced when I moved up. And the per pupil expenditures for technology, the state average is $171.81. Currently, Milton is at $127.35, which is a difference of $44 per pupil, or $168,000 per year. And over the last few years, like I mentioned, we've lost the network administrator. We've also lost a PC technician, and we've also lost the tech mentors, which were at every level that helped the staff with questions pertaining to GradeQuick, Edline, email, whatever that might be. So let's see. Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
Mrs. Kelly, sorry.
So going to staffing for technology integration, is that the mentors that you were referring to, or is that something
No,
different?
the definition for that technology integration person is totally different. It's actually integrating specific technology with curriculum.
And so we've never had that type of a position.
No.
And are there districts, surrounding us or in the area that do have that position? I mean, I guess I'd be interested to hear what it is that we're not getting the benefit from. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Well, what's difficult for me is, I'm the true technical person. I provide the tools. If people have a problem, I come up with a solution. I'm not the one that deals with the actual delivery or the integration of that technology with the curriculum to get it out there in the best way.
Right.
Provide the solution.
Ms. Gormley wants.
And I wanted to speak to Mrs. Kelly's point. Simultaneously to this report, we were going to bring tonight Holly Concanon, our new elementary math and K-8 technology director. So again, simultaneously to this being submitted, that person was appointed. That administrator is going to work with all of our elementary teachers. Again, what are the pieces of software, fourth grade, system-wide, that are implemented, that integrate the curriculum, making sure they get the professional development. And so that, with the work of the school committee and the union, is a new position. And at the high school, in the restructuring last summer, we now have our math department head at the high school take on technology. So to Mrs. Kelly's point, in some school districts, you know how we have computer labs in each school. Bob's going to speak to, as a result of the school building project, when each of us, if we were classroom teachers, go to the computer lab, we'd work with the expert. Some districts have a teacher. Some districts have aides in those computer labs. But again, we rely on the classroom teacher, and we support the classroom teacher owning and understanding all of that integration, but it's another discipline that they have to master, the software. So I really look to the appointment of Holly Concanon, covering K through 8 in that, Ms. Kelly, to really take responsibility and assure us system-wide that that technology is integrated. But to those positions, now in professional development, then we have individuals at the middle and high. Your children sign up for technology classes, the Greg Forges of the world or the Sally Rushes. But we also, through John Phelan, offer several, we have very strong staff members who have talents in presenting professional development 7-hour strands. So several teachers take it. But with these new administrators, they'll assure that the curriculum's there for all of the children.
This is also based on last fiscal year, so this is, and these numbers are based on ending last June.
Mrs. Kelly?
And so to that point, is the 127 from Milton's per pupil tech expenditures, is that all funding sources or just the general fund? Do you know?
It's all funding sources.
All funding sources. So that would include the Foundation for Education, or we don't include Foundation for Education in
No,
our end of year
because
report?
it doesn't run through our general ledger.
Right,
And the
but,
end of the year report has to tie out to our general ledger.
right. But just from, I guess I'd like to present to the community that, if we were to add in, I think that the Foundation for Education has generously donated to the schools in terms of upgrading a lot of technology, smart boards in particular, and that dollar amount would increase. Granted, it's not, comparatively the way we would like to get it, but that we are making progress on that front.
And to that point, Ms. Kelly, that number is really impacted by the Hillside. If we didn't have the Hillside funds at Milton High School, that number would be much lower.
Mr. Gillis, would you take the microphone, please?
Sure. As far as remedying that going forward, because those are the FY08 numbers, those are the latest numbers available. The FY09 report was just submitted this fall, but the state hasn't compiled everybody's and put out the comparative data yet. We can remedy that if the MFE were to give us a check, we put it into a revolving fund and then release the funds and run everything through the purchase order system, and then we would report it. There would be no...
Show the actuals.
Right, we would report the actuals because the requirement with the state is that it ties out to the town's official books.
If I can add also I got that spreadsheet from somebody at the DOE, specifically the technology-related account numbers, and it's pretty much apples to apples between districts, so whatever they include. All right, want me to move on? Okay.
Please.
So the next slide here is our level funded budget proposal for next year, and it's the same dollar amount as last year. And also you can see all of the items there. More than half of it is contractual upkeep on software, systems, hardware, vital hardware like our main core switches, service contracts on those, the email archival, Edline, firewall, internet access, all kind of reoccurring costs. So $107,000 of that is reoccurring. So that leaves not a lot of money to advance us. Basically, for the past few years, we've been just trying to maintain what we have, and we've been extremely lucky for years that we've had this huge influx for 6 years, basically, of building committee money, where we're able to basically put all new equipment in every single building. And for the past couple of years, we have also benefited from the Milton Foundation, from Hillside, from other donations. So we've been doing pretty well, and it's really lessened the burden on the actual operational budget. But this is the first year we are truly suffering. And it just seems like there's an inverse relationship between the dependency on the technology and the use of it and our budget to support it. And it's not just in the equipment, but also the staff, as you saw on the other slide. So this is what we have to work with going forward.
And may I ask, Bob, would you also share with the committee really an offshoot of working with the Finance Subcommittee, Mr. Pavlicek brought up, and we followed up with the college applications online. Will you explain the demo work that you've done and the piloting and what will happen next year at Milton High School?
Right, certainly guidance knows more about it than I do. I set it up and got the data into it to make sure that it works, but the software is called Naviance, and I'll be honest, I don't know its prevalence or exactly what you do with it, but I know what data they needed from me. So I got everything that guidance needed into it for this current year, and they've been piloting with a bunch of students to see how it works and get that rolling. So hopefully next year that will be the norm.
Yes.
It is a very exciting program for our guidance department and all of our high school students. It will enable every child to be on an account with their name. All the materials will be stored in a secure site, so when they apply for college, all items can be uploaded and sent to every college. It is used, I think, in a lot of private schools, and in the public school setting, it's just starting to take root. Having gone through the process as parents who have graduated, there's a lot of paper and envelopes still in this process, and we hope to bring that down to a minimum. So not only will everything be done electronically, but students and guidance staff and parents will be able to monitor the successful sending of all that information, when the schools receive it, the date that it's received, and all communication coming back to them from the universities and colleges will be done electronically. So we really feel fortunate to have this process in place. They did pilot some students this year, and I believe that as the guidance department does their group guidance sessions this spring, they are having students enter in all their information. They're starting to put the databases together so they hit the ground running with every freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior next year. So we're really excited as a school to be able to provide this essential service to all of our students as they go through the school system and as they look to enter into such great higher ed opportunities.
And John Phelan and Bob Patterson made that happen.
Wonderful. Mrs. Kelly?
Just, what's the cost of the program, and is that included in our list here, or is that outside of that?
In the Naviance program?
Yes.
It's $3,000.
Guidance, I think that came from not,
I think it was $3,000.
Not technology, but
right,
guidance
no, yes,
expenses?
I think so.
Okay.
And may I just add, on behalf of Bob, he's being fairly modest. I think that a position like the technology support that we receive in the district, with the influx of money from the building committee and all the great technology we have, people take for granted that it's always on and it always works. And you only think it's a problem when it's not working, and you never know how hard the people are working behind the scenes while it is working. So it works all the time. It's a substantial position to be responsible for all the information that goes in and out of these schools to make sure that the students are protected and the teachers are protected from all the things that are out on the web that can come in and out, but also that the technology and the equipment is up and working. And so when we do take on all these professional initiatives, they work seamlessly. And, you have to pause and thank Joe Thomas, Bob Patterson, and Julius for all the work they do behind the scenes, morning and night. You really, I think the teachers at the Cunningham actually voted for Teacher of the Month or Staff Person of the Month, the technology support staff, because they really truly believe they do a great job. So I would like to thank Bob publicly and his staff for all the great work they do.
And Bob told us a little secret today that I'll tell you.
Don't ever tell
Bob
Mary
told us a secret today, that Mr. Winchester never said no to him. And so he was explaining to us really the amount of money through the school building project, labs in every school, computers in not every single classroom. And he worked closely with Mr. Winchester and the school building committee. And I think the school building committee members can attest to this, that every purchase order, every request was reviewed. And that was pretty enlightening today. He said, Mr. Winchester never said no to me. And so you earn the respect of everyone, and for the time and the talent you give. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Mr. Pavlicek?
Yeah, I just want to say that the number that jumped off on me there is the replacement of 78 computers, which a quick division tells you that that's 1/15 of our computer supply, which
Right.
Right, and you-
15 computer does not last 15 years.
No,
And it's, we need to be spending twice that much on replacing computers just to have an adequate replacement supply.
well, that's the double-edged sword of all the money that we've received from other sources. We have to replace those computers. People they expect them, they depend on them. So that's our struggle now, is just supporting what we have.
Well, they're not luxuries anymore. I mean, they're long past that stage. That we have children who depend on them. It is amazing. Seeing college kids come through. If they don't have their laptop, they don't know what to do. So, it's just it's a different generational attitude towards these machines. They're absolutely a necessary part of the way they learn.
Right, well, it's incredible. I mean, I've been here 9 years, and I remember the old high school. The buildings weren't connected with the fiber optics. Everybody was doing everything disjointed and separate, and it's just it's night and day. Even the past couple of years.
Should we tell one more secret? One more. We said how everything's changed in the last 9 years, and Mr. Lovely can bring this story back. We remember when we were housed at Brush Hill Road saying, Bob, put a laptop on the then superintendent, Dr. Mary Grasser O'Neill's desk, and maybe she'll start using it. And we know everybody uses the email and the computers now, but we said that was 9 short years ago. And everyone didn't have a computer on their desk and accessing this information.
Right, I mean, it's really incredible. I mean, we have almost 1,200 computers, about 140 printers, 550 email accounts, and 12 servers, and it's 6 buildings, all the fiber optics, the connections with the town, and it's unbelievable. It really is.
It's really exciting.
Very fortunate.
Thank you.
Mrs. Kelly?
It is amazing, quite frankly. But essentially, I think what I'm hearing us saying is our technology over the past several years has been capitalized via the school building project. And now we're into the phase where we have to fold it into our operating expenses. And so I guess I would ask, as a future endeavor, not anything that's going to happen tomorrow, that we have to really put our heads to this and see if there's something we can come up with that would put us on a footing from an operational budget perspective to really maintain these, because there's no way, as Glenn points out, that the math works on this from a technological perspective.
And, you know, the sad part is that it's not just the equipment either, it's the staff as well. And, you know, it seems almost ridiculous to ask for more staff when there's cuts being made, but that's the reality.
Well, we'll count on you to keep us reminded of that fact, Bob. So thank you. And you do so much more than just this. I mean, you're here for events in the auditorium. You
Well, Joe and
have
Julius are
hands
here
in.
a lot,
Great.
a lot more than I am.
Well, thank you to them too as well. All right, Ms. Bagley Jones.
Quick question, can you just tell us the use of smart boards in Edline across the system? Have you seen it get better? Are people more familiar with it? Are they using Edline more? Are they using smart boards if they have them? Is there a way to track that? Is that somebody else's job? I'm just curious.
Again, with the smart boards, you know, I provide the tools.
Right.
I can't really speak to who is using it more than others. That would kind of come at the building level with evaluations. But I know I get a lot of questions about them, so that means that they're using them and they're running into.
And would you do the training for folks on how to do the smart boards, and then
There's
they're on their
professional
own?
development.
Okay.
And there's different courses and different levels for the, and there's also, built into the smart software, you can go with a couple of clicks and it will bring you right to the Massachusetts curriculum frameworks, and you can drill down to the specific strand that you're teaching that day. And more than likely, there's a pre-made lesson specifically for that strand, and you can download it and use it instantly.
I would just be curious how many smart boards we actually have throughout the system. And also the Edline question, because I hear a lot about folks using it or not using it. Just curious.
The Edline, I think, well, again, I get all the emails and calls from parents that either, you know, lost their passwords or they need to get in, and I save them all. And, you know, there's hundreds and hundreds from just this year. So I think it's pretty widely used.
And if I might, there's a contractual agreement, and again, we're going next year into a new contract, and it's the department heads and the building administrators' responsibility to be sure that each teacher is communicating and using Edline, and any parent who has an issue should absolutely contact. We always encourage first the teacher, and then go to the principal if they're having an issue with Edline. And to the smart board, I think it would be valuable if you gave us a follow-up, the exact number. It's very exciting at the high school, as Ms. Kelly addressed, between the Milton Foundation and, again, different funds. They don't really do the mini grants for smart boards, but different years, celebrations. Then next at Pierce, the number of smart boards, and the smart boards at the elementary levels, Bob, 2 or 3 at each elementary school tops.
Probably 4. here at the high school, there's closer to 60. At the middle school, I think 8 or so. I have the exact numbers downstairs, but
Okay, thank you.
And maybe you could email your PowerPoint presentation to the school committee members as well? Great, thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Pavlicek?
Just one on, you mentioned emailing out report cards. How do we deal with the security issues surrounding email, especially when you have things like report cards or progress reports? And, you know, there are certain things we can email and certain things we can't. I mean, certainly, for instance, there's all sorts of private records that can't go through email, or at least through an insecure, standard email, as opposed to a special secure email. Are we dealing with that? I mean, that was an issue I remember when people talked about putting grades on Edline, and there was a whole, that's a whole
grades
issue
on
there.
Edline it's a little different. What happens is with Edline, things are posted, and then you would get an email saying, you've got a private report waiting,
Mhm.
and then you would have to sign in
Mhm.
to see that private report. But the email, the report cards and progress reports are emailed directly to the email that is listed in the personal database.
Mhm.
Anything else? Well, thank you so much for coming tonight.
you.
Good luck.
Thanks. And if I might, while Bob's ending his presentation, Mr. Hubian had asked briefly for a winter sports update. Our athletic director, Steve Traster, was very proud. Downstairs tonight, John Phelan's son, the boys' basketball team, are playing their last game, and they're looking to win their 4th consecutive Bay State Conference Herget Division title. Currently, they have a record of 12-4, and they're in first place in their division, and they qualified for the Division II state tournament. They are led by Coach Lepresti with seniors Emmanuel Hutchinson and DJ Santos. They have 4 games remaining, including the Quincy tournament over Friday vacation, and they're downstairs now playing. And this is the seniors' last night, I believe, in this building. Girls basketball, the girls basketball team has won 2 games remaining, and currently have a 3-16 record. Coach Mike Linane's team is being led by senior captain Devon Riley and Deidre Finn. Boys ice hockey. The boys ice hockey team has a record of 4-8-1 with 7 games remaining and an outside shot of qualifying for the Division I tournament. Coach Noonan's team is being led by 4 senior forwards, Brian O'Regan and Matt O'Neill, as well as goaltender Mike Muse. The girls ice hockey, which I had the pleasure of watching the other night, is currently in first place in the Herget Division with a 9-2-4 record and is qualified for the Division II state tournament. First-year coach Maggie Radley's team is led by Brianna Kelly and junior goaltender Emma Drew. Boys indoor track. I should have Mr. Phelan speak to this. Another one of his children is a star on the track team. Coach Chuck Ajamian's boys indoor track team finished the Herget Division undefeated with a 5-0 record, and the boys are led by Donna Altion. Girls indoor track, Hall of Fame track coach Dale Schneider's girls indoor track team finished the division undefeated 5-0. The top point getters for the team are senior captain Cheryl Tran and Emily Hughes, and Mr. Phelan's daughter, a freshman, running with the seniors. Wrestling, it makes it more alive when you have somebody firsthand every morning giving you the results of all these competitions. Second year head coach, Milton High School, Ted Carroll. I have a fondness for this Milton High School graduate, and he's come back and is looking to bring our wrestling team back to life. Has become very competitive this year, led by seniors Gino Kelly and Luke Salamando. Boys and girls ski team, Coach Paul Ajamian is back in his 2nd stint as leader of this team. His team is led by Kevin and Liam Walsh and Jimmy Goltz. The girls team is led by Miss Campbell and Hallie Perlick. Lastly, the winter cheerleading, Jessica Parsons' cheerleading squad will compete on February 27th for the Bay State Conference cheerleading competition at Natick High School, and the team is led by captains Tara Diamond and Alexa McIsaac. And so also I would tell you that the boosters are working with John Phelan and Steve Traister for one of these flat screen TVs down in the lobby, so that it will run with all of the upcoming games and notes about athletics. So for everyone who raised those important dollars for athletics at Milton High, it's alive and well, and it brings a tremendous amount of spirit to the school, as does the music and the arts.
Mary, can you mention the booster, or can somebody mention the
I
booster?
do, I have it right here. Comedy night this Friday night.
Friday night, because they're struggling for tickets. And so
Absolutely. I'll give it to last
be
year's
enthusiastic.
co-chair running that. Want to give a plug to that, then I will?
Sure.
Enthusiastic, John.
Yeah.
Put a little life into it.
Absolutely. The comedy night, second year in a row, the comedy night at the Hoosier Club. We had a great time last year, raised almost $17,000. They do a great job of having a comedian come in, and prior to the show, they have donated soups from all area restaurants. This year, from Durgan Park to Ashmont Grill, 88 Wharf, Abbey Park, are all donating soups and breads for people to come in and enjoy. The owners, Keith and Linda Mills of the wine shop down the street, Esprit de Vin, are providing the wine for an open bar time for an hour for everyone coming in for the price of admission of $40 per person. This money goes directly to the boosters, which are in sorely need of it this year, to buy track uniforms. I'll put a plug in for Dale Schneider and that track team in faded uniforms. But they do a great job. Leslie Durgan and Paul Durgan and the crew that have working on this function. It's going to be a great night like it was last year. So you can come at the door, you can pay in advance, but show up the night. It's Friday night at the Hoosier Club, the 12th of February, just 4 nights away.
And every dime goes back to Milton High School athletics. Another event we've been asked in our partnership with the Milton Police Department. Last year, this was a sellout, a Celtic crossing. The journey continues Friday night, February 26th. So that would be next Friday night. And our own
Two Friday nights.
Two Friday nights, right.
2 weeks from this Friday night.
Right.
Time flies. Our own police chief, Richard Wells' wife, Pauline, will be singing with many noted Irish singers. Again, a Celtic crossing. It's called on February 26th right here in the Milton High School auditorium. The tickets are $25. The big show begins at 7:30, and Chief Wells sent the message that you can buy the tickets at the police station or the Council on Aging. And he asked us to give that a plug. We've spoken to you about kindergarten and first grade registration, and we've had the 2 nights, and I would say that they might be the highlights of the school year. It is really amazing. I look at Ms. Sheridan, Mr. Lovely came last year. All of you over the years have come to see those parents' faces with their excitement and their trepidation, looking forward to, as I call, a 12 or 13-year career with the Milton Public Schools. So we had a very successful kindergarten registration night on January 28th. 280 students have pre-registered. As you came in the room tonight, you'll see that we've changed the registration. This week, parents are registering. So if you're a parent out there with a child who's going to kindergarten next year and you don't have an appointment, please call the superintendent's office tomorrow and we'll get you the materials. We're having the parents register this week. They come in, they sit with the secretary and nurse and the financial person in a very private setting so that they can establish what their full-day kindergarten fee will be. Parents have a deadline per Sean Walsh of April 30th to submit their paperwork, because in May, we're sending out the letters with the school assignments, their tuition amount, and then the children will receive a screening appointment for June. So this is a process with deadlines, and the parents have responded very positively. And over the years, the school committee has been involved. And last year, we gave teacher assignments at the beginning of the summer, but we're going to wait until the end of the summer. We're going to communicate this fully to parents to make the teacher assignments at the end of August. So we've got a schedule, and we'll put the schedule up on the web for kindergarten parents. The other night, per the school, I told the audience that nobody really wanted to have this night except the school committee and the superintendent. And I said, in the spirit of full disclosure, we wanted to get these parents in here, explain our English and our French immersion program to them, We've scheduled on February 23rd and 24th classroom visits at the Tucker School for any parent who wants to view our first grade program. And we're going through a registration process in March. We explained to the audience, parents and guardians, that John Phelan and Gracie Burke are heading up a World Language Committee, that they're going to be making recommendations, and after they make their recommendations at the end of February to the school committee, that we will then bring this audience together in March, the first grade parents, and so we'll give them all the information so they can make informed decisions. And your decision was right to have that night. The audience was very positive. They appreciated us giving them the information. There were outstanding questions. So I have to tell you, two outstanding nights with 300, John, Matt,
Each night, yeah.
and I want to recognize Matt jumping right in this year and all the teachers and administrators. This is a multi-person presentation from the school nurse to Pam Dorsey to the classroom teachers who come out.
Ms. Gormley, could you please give the phone number? Do you want them to call Sean Walsh?
Sean Walsh, 617-696-4811 or 4812. And I also want to give a plug for February 10th, the program of study nights for all parents of students in grades 8 through 11 at the Milton High School Auditorium at 7 o'clock, February 10th. Tomorrow night. Very important night. You know, again, we'll put out to all the parents about that evening with the snow, and if that's in fact going to be rescheduled. But that's an important night for parents. I want to lastly address, before I turn this over to Mr. Phelan for one report, that we have our Glover principal screening team in place, and the school committee will be represented by Linda Lee Sheridan, and we have our director of pupil personnel screening committee in place. She'll be represented by Kristen Bagley-Jones. Thank you. We have parent reps from the PAC and from the Glover School and all the committees. We have we go to the union, and the union brings forth teachers for both committees. We have dates set up, and we'll be giving you periodic updates on the screening process to fill those two very important positions. But we're moving ahead quickly, and the response looks like it's been outstanding to our, again, we put our ad out and try to put out the largest net we can and get a very highly qualified pool for these individuals to interview. The math department head at Milton High School, as you remember, that was the third opening. That screening committee is going to be led by Principal Dr. John Drotta, and then those finalists will be brought to John Phelan, Matt Gillis, and myself. We spoke to you that at last November's celebration, MFE celebration, over $7,000 was raised to help run a Saturday program in the Milton Public Schools. Mr. Phelan is going to give us an update of that program and how it's going to be rolled out tomorrow.
Thank you, Superintendent Gormley. We're very excited to roll out the Milton Public Saturday Enrichment Program. This will be for students in grades 4 through 7. It'll be held at the Pierce Middle School on Saturdays. This is sponsored and with the full support of the Milton Foundation for Education. They had this as one of their live auctions at the celebration last year. I'd personally like to thank Erica Donahue and Margaret Eberhardt and Denise Quayle, the chairs of the celebration night in 2009, this past event. They put a lot of trust in us to go up and advocate for this program. We raised over $7,000 at that live auction that night, and that seed money is, some of that money will be placed into starting the pilot program this spring. Parents have already received an email from Mr. Jett in those grades letting them know that a booklet will be sent home this Thursday night. The booklet has an array of enrichment opportunities they can take advantage of for this pilot program of just 4 weeks. The program will start March 6th and run in 4 consecutive Saturdays, 6th, 13th, 20th, and 27th of March. We want to open our schools that are beautiful facilities with great teachers that we have and allow our teachers to get creative with programs running from robotics to drama to library to phys ed. We're going to bring in the CATS program. Some of you are familiar with the lunch and recess program they have with the phys ed. So we're really excited to give our students in our community, a great Saturday program in pilot form this March in preparation for 2 great 8-week sessions next year, so our parents can depend on a great place for their children to be on a Saturday morning throughout the school year. So thank you to the Milton Foundation. Thank you to James Jett and Stephanie Nephew at the PS for really taking hold of this initiative and kicking it off the ground and moving it forward. But this is great stuff for the Milton Public Schools and the students that we have in our community.
Perhaps that booklet could be sent to the members of the school committee
It will.
too as well. Thank you. Mrs. Kelly?
So this is an enrichment Saturday program,
Mhm.
which is not to be confused with a MCAS boosting Saturday program. Do we still have I guess I'm just get confused as to what we're offering, and if there are other Saturday programs, if we could talk about those.
That's a great question. Separate from this, we have the Title I money that's funding programs before school at the Tucker, and we have Steve Shapiro providing free tutoring sessions at the Tucker School, along with Milton High School students as teachers, tutors for those students. This program will also have a support program as part of it, Member Kelly. That's part of the money that will be seed money from the enrichment from the Milton Foundation. We will have support classes in math and English, so a student can take one of those if they need to, based on their scores, and they will do so for free. But then they can also go right next door when that 1 hour ends and go to a art class or a music class or a phys ed class or a library class to enjoy some enrichment as well. So we hope that students that are going there because we'd like to get them some support in math and English will be right next to students who are in there to get some great enrichment, and together the program will actually fund itself over the years, similar to how our summer enrichment that offers some great opportunities is a self-funding program. We hope to have that same experience each Saturday next year as well.
Just to clarify one thing, sorry, Mrs. Kelly.
I'm sorry.
There is a nominal
I
fee
have-
for this, correct?
I apologize. For this pilot program, it's $100. It's $25 per Saturday. That's 4 hours. We hope to stretch that program to 8-week sessions next year, and the cost will be kept down by the funds provided by the Milton Foundation for Education. And we will only run a program if it has enough students available in the class. So only classes that will run will be those that are self-funded by enough students enrolled.
Is there, I'm sorry, is there any scholarship or other support or recognition of those who can't afford it? Is the purpose behind the charge to fund the teacher expense for the day? Is that just to be clear?
Yes,
So the teachers are not volunteering for the day, they're being paid for the day,
that's
right?
correct.
I guess I'd be particularly concerned about the availability of the program for people who
And to
can't
Ms.
afford it.
And to Mr. Lovely's point, in the packet will be all the information about free and reduced lunch program, and how all of the programs, if you're involved in that, will correlate to reduced fee or no fee. And we would encourage any parent, and we'll put this in the information, that has an issue with the tuition to contact us. And only through this Milton Foundation donation will we able to run this program and charge just $100 for the program to go for these 4 mornings for all of these sessions, because it's very important to know these are certified teachers, and again, they had to submit what they were going to teach, and we go right to the contract and pay them. And so there's a very high bar, and as all of you remember, the Milton Public Schools are involved in a program at Milton Academy. They call it the Saturday program. And again, it's an enrichment program, and it's competitive, and we're only given so many seats. And I want to tell you that our goal, as John Phelan said, is to open these schools on Saturday morning. And it was John's idea, rather than to open 5 schools, to bring 4th through 7th graders together at the PS. So it's a savings for us on custodians and heating, and really open the schools on Saturday morning for enriching activities, and as Ms. Kelly addressed also, to have programs that will be in the area of math and English, and combine those with, so that a child who's going on a Saturday morning will have an athletic period, maybe an arts and crafts period, a theater period, and then if they need math or science, they can take that period.
Sure.
Just as a follow-up. Has anybody approached the teachers? First, let me back up. Does the contract permit, if the teachers were to be so inclined to donate their services, does the contract permit it, number one? Number two, have they been asked? And number three, if they haven't been asked, I would just ask that we ask. I'm just very concerned about children being denied the opportunity for this for lack of money, who don't otherwise qualify for reduced lunch, but who nonetheless are stressed with the environment being what it is and the economy being what it is. I just hate to see any child turned away.
To Mr. Lovely's point, they weren't asked, and we can ask them, and the contract doesn't keep us from not asking. And your point's well taken that besides the free and reduced lunch, that we'll work with the principals and the classroom teachers to work with families and to call homes, because this is not a money-making effort for us. We just want to break even.
I'm not suggesting it is.
No, but I want to say that's why, that's going to enable us. That's going to enable us.
Are we examining all the potential charges and costs?
Absolutely, but we can do that through, and that will be our charge, by teachers identifying our children involved. And as I often say to high school teachers, when students don't show up for MCAS support on Saturday mornings, I'll ask, did the English teacher call the home? Did the math teacher call the home? Did the guidance teacher call the home? So we'll use those same techniques to reach out to as many families as we can to make sure that this is full. And encouraging, if families are watching, and in the brochure, we can put something that invites parents to contact us.
And I would assume that each participating teacher could be asked, and there's not a requirement that necessarily in order to do it that everybody would waive it, but I really would appreciate us asking. I mean, we're in such dire straits economically that to put yet another charge out in front of parents, particularly for people who can't afford it, really troubles me.
And again, our goal was to make it as small as possible with the assistance of the Milton Foundation. But your point's well taken. For some family or some child, that in itself is going to be too much.
And this is a pilot program this year with, so this is the opportunity for us to iron out or look at all the opportunities and iron out the kinks and see what recommendations would be made for next year's program, correct?
Absolutely.
Let's at least identify, if there's a universe of children that, for whatever reason, we can't qualify them for scholarships, I would at least like us to know confidentially what that number is and how many people short we are, or how many dollars short we are, and maybe there's something we can do about it. I don't mean we, meaning from our budget, but maybe there's something we can do by approaching people. But this is an outstanding opportunity, and it's not something that ought to be governed by the inequities created by people who don't have the cash to expend. To some, $100 not a lot of money. To others, it's a substantial amount of money.
And to Mr. Lovely's point, it's the exact way I feel about fees for athletics and clubs. It takes the public out of public education, and it makes it available only to some. So we'll reach out to every child who's within the audience being able to
Good.
attend.
Thank you, Superintendent.
Mrs. Kelly?
You had mentioned some sort of physical activity. That's being put on by CATS? Am I correct in saying that? And is that a charge program as well? In other words, is the Milton Public Schools being charged for that component of it, or is that a volunteer working together type of thing?
We have been, if you may, we've been working with CATS and partnering with them around our recess program, where they have, actually they were just on Channel 5, I believe, with a great spot on how the Glover School has been utilizing the parents in the CATS program. We are having every elementary school PTO trained to use the CATS program at every playground. We think it's a great technique for getting kids engaged in activities that are non-competitive. We think that not only is it keeping kids active, but it's actually an anti-bully type program where kids can be engaged and take part in a non-competitive way. So in working with Todd Ducharme, who's a parent of ours, we have sat with him a few times about different opportunities to partner with him. So we are working with him at cost to have him provide this to us at the Saturday program. And we also had him in for professional development in the fall. We'd like to have him in for professional development. A lot of these things that we're doing with him are at cost at this point in time, as we look to partner with him as a business, and his interest in us and our interest in him to provide these services to the students. So he will not be costing us anything extra. We will work that through the program. And again, this is a pilot. We will feel out how popular his process is or his program is, and is it something that the kids would come out for that's different than just coming out for just a regular gym session, phys ed session.
And that CATS program was highlighted in the superintendent's email blast this past week, too. Great. Ms. Bagley-Jones.
I understand, Mr. Lovely, your point about asking the teachers, but I guess I have a little bit of an issue with that when I think selfishly of my kids' teachers and, parenthetically, they work 5 days a week, and then we're asking them to do a Saturday program for free. I'd like to see the program designed so that we could pay our teachers to do it, because I do think that's important to get a quality program and whatever. And then, but the other point is I really do like the idea of trying to figure out a way for families where a parent has been laid off, for sports program, because it's not just the free and reduced lunch. That just doesn't cover it for many of our families. But when a family member loses their job, is there a way for them to apply confidentially through you for sports fees for a program like this? Because this is the stuff that is not going to get paid for. And I really hate to see that happen. They might not meet the requirements for free and reduced, but they've lost a job. So how do they pay for these extra things?
You know, as a result of tonight's meeting and you bringing that up, we'll add something in the brochure for parents to access. And I think that, as I said, through the kindergarten screening process, they have trust, and we're only as good as our names. They know that it's confidential. So we'll add something in the brochure and encourage parents to contact one of the two of us directly.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else, Ms. Gormley?
That's it. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Well, the school committee, we have several items that need our attention tonight. First is the calendar. We have a policy in the, school committee has a policy that says that we need to approve the calendar for the 2010-2011 school year.
So moved.
That.
And a second. We do oftentimes, just as part of the discussion, oftentimes get questions from parents about why do we start school before Labor Day. So I just want to raise that proactively ahead of time. Right now, that is in the teacher's contract. So it's a non-negotiable right now for this school year's calendar. No?
For
Yes.
some reason, I think it says doesn't it say we can start before Labor Day? Or does it say we have to start before Labor Day?
I don't
Anyways.
know, Ms.
I don't think it
Gormley.
says-
I have it in my pocket.
September 1st. Yeah, September 1st.
I don't think we have to start.
Right.
As I understand it, the reason is to reduce the likelihood of snow days, among other things, having
Right.
a negative
Thank you.
impact on our school count.
Student achievement
Right.
days in.
So as this calendar stands, the first day of school would be, for students, would be September 1st, and the last day of school, so they would go Wednesday and Thursday of September, and then have Friday of Labor Day weekend, Friday and Monday off. And then the last day of school would be June 15th, which would be a half-day. Is there any other discussion or comments or questions about this? All in favor of this calendar? Oh, it's unanimous, thank you.
And we'll put this out, Mike, we'll
Yes.
put this out in every backpack and on the web as of tomorrow.
Great, thank you.
Lots of telephone.
The second thing that we need to look at, again, is our calendar, and the reason that this is a concern is because we already identified at our last meeting that probably our February date will not happen, and we know for a fact that will not happen, our February 23rd date, meeting date. So the school committee is posted prior to town meeting, but that is a town meeting date, so we are canceling that public session because we'll be at town meeting. And there's a really strong probability that if town meeting goes 4 nights, that our March 2nd date will not be available either. We're meeting for this town meeting Monday, Tuesday, and then Monday, Tuesday of the following week. There isn't a Thursday night of that session. So if we do go 4 nights, there's a probability that our March 2nd date would not be held. So I wanted to just raise this as an issue or as a question to the school committee and say that if, in fact, that does happen, that we could possibly reschedule that meeting for March 9th, which would be the following Tuesday night. Would that be acceptable to people? Yeah.
Can we get back to you?
I'm sorry?
Can we get back to you on that?
Right.
Yes. So it's just a proposal. We don't know whether or not we'll need that, that date. But it just would be a very long time to go from tonight's meeting until March 16th without having a meeting.
So are you proposing to replace March 16th with March 9th?
No, March 2nd. If we're still in special town meeting on March 2nd, then we would postpone the March 2nd date and have a meeting on March 9th.
Right, and I
Then
guess,
still have
And the 16th and the 30th.
meeting on the 16th and the 30th. Are you not thinking we need that?
I'm just wondering whether we need, you know, it's up to all of you, but we do have an open budget hearing on the 16th. So maybe we could just have the open budget hearing on the 16th? And, do you know what I mean?
And
Because the only thing that's on the topics for March 2nd right now is the food service report, along with the budget, which we talk about every meeting anyways, right? So I'm wondering if we could roll that, I don't know, I'm just.
So move it back to the 9th, the 2nd or the 9th? Okay, and then not have a formal meeting, just have the open budget hearing on the 16th?
Correct, that's what I'm wondering.
And I would like to add,
Because we also want to be going to PTO meetings during that
right,
month as well.
right.
So maybe condensing some of our formal meetings might be the way to help achieve that.
Okay, and we're also going to ask Holly to come to that next meeting as well. Okay, so what is how does everyone feel about that? So the proposal is to move facilities and science curriculum back to the March 2nd date. If in fact we don't have March 2nd meeting date, then we'll reschedule that for March 9th.
Or do we just want to say our meeting is now going to be on the 9th? We'll
I
just
think that's what.
cancel the 2nd altogether. Just say we're going to have it on the
Okay.
9th and then put whatever slots we need to into that meeting.
Okay. All right. Any other changes to that? I do have one more thing I want to add, just for the annual topics, that I'm trying to add to this calendar this year. Back in December, we should have voted on our program of studies. We should have had an approval of a program of studies, so I'd like to add that to this calendar as well. So unless there are any objections, we'll accept these changes?
Good.
Great, thank you. And then I'd just like to ask one more thing. There's been so much in the news lately about bullying and cyberbullying. I'd like to request that our policy subcommittee do some research on possibility of coming up with a bullying policy for the Milton Public Schools.
Just ironic that you should have mentioned that. I just read in today's Lawyers Weekly that a Superior Court ruling has suggested that public school officials may have a duty under the state constitution to protect students from bullying, potentially opening up an avenue of liability that traditionally has been considered blocked by the absence of a remedy. This is being advanced by some civil rights attorneys, and bullying is on high visibility status across the nation. So I would suggest that that's a very good idea. I was about to read that. I was trying to remember my password to get into the full story, but I couldn't remember it. So that's the short version.
That's great.
To that point, Ms. Kelly had asked me, and I networked with area superintendents, and I have several samples. I approached our attorney, who has a sample policy, so we have all of the work done for the policy subcommittee to look at and to come up with a policy for the Milton Public Schools.
Good. We like that. We like that. Get us
So-
all the information you can.
So the policy subcommittee can
Consider
let
it.
us know when they'd like to
Yep.
report out on that,
We
and
will,
Chris.
we will meet on that.
Thank you.
So we'll
Okay.
set a meeting for that?
That's the end of my report. Glenn, could we hear from you on the school building subcommittee report, please?
Thankfully, school building meetings are getting shorter. The ramp and crawl space work at Cunningham Collicut are done. It was a final inspection. The final inspection is this week. And some photos have to be taken for the Architectural Access Board. But those are the final work over there. Last week, we signed the contract for the photovoltaics for the roof, and we got confirmation from the Mass Technology Collaborative that we'll be able to use some of the money that we saved on the photovoltaics to put another little weather station up on the roof of Cunningham Collicut, as we have online on the roof of the high school. So the photovoltaics came in at way under budget. And since we have a little bit of the grant money left, we decided we would look at putting a weather station up in Cunningham Collicut as well. And MTC has said they will pick up the 90% of it from our grant. So that's going to go forward as well. The last bid we have out is going to go out is for the ductwork on the roof here, which is the last remaining piece I think that we need to do pretty much here to have some of the ductwork fixed up on the roof. That was supposed to go out, was supposed to be advertised this week. I haven't checked to see whether it went out in this week, but that was supposed to go out as well. The other piece are the historical packages for the lobby at the Pearson High School auditorium. All the material has been collected. Mr. Cronin has provided some some historical material for both the material that will be on permanent collection at the library and that will also be whittled down for permanent plaques in the two lobbies. The pictures have been taken. We charged the architect at the meeting last week to try to have at least the high school auditorium ready for a Springtown meeting. We would really like to have all those pictures up and the plaques up and just everything ready when we come in for Springtown meeting, because it would really be nice to have that done. The rest of it at this point is cross-checking to make sure that, when we said, we have to check to make sure that we finished our acquisition of the musical instruments from the Copeland grant and finished the little pieces of this and that we've had sort of off to the side to make sure that everything is done, and that Tony Chicello and I will be meeting with the town accountant's office to just double check the funds to make sure we're all where we think we are with respect to the budget, and then the committee will decide how to close it out basically. But we just have to make sure we're on the same page as the town's records, because we keep our own records and they keep their own records, and we just have to cross-check them and make sure everything is balancing out. So after I don't know how many hundreds of meetings, it was very reassuring to go into a school building committee meeting and be done in 30, 45 minutes. I mean, that's the first, I think. So it's it's getting finished. So that's
Thank
my
you.
report.
Finance Subcommittee report, Mrs. Kelly, please.
I'd like to take this a little bit out of order and see if we could start with the second quarter actuals, just to give us an update as to where we are right now. Mr. Gillis, if you might.
Sure. In your packet, you'll see a memo from me, 2 pages, that kind of summarizes the 3-page financials. If you go to the 3rd page, the summary of the general fund and the 7 school committee categories, if you go right down to the bottom, you'll see that there's a 49% of the money remaining through the end of January. And that is actually pretty tight, but also pretty good shape for us spending down our entire budget. Doesn't leave us a whole lot of wiggle room for surprises, but being halfway through the year, we're in pretty good shape. If you were to break it out into the 2 major categories of salary and non-salary, we have about 57% of the salaries remaining, which puts us right on target to end the year, because some of our folks, a lot of our folks, start the year in September, and they may have the lump sum payment. We also haven't paid winter and spring stipends for sports and some other seasonal type of payments. So we're right about where we should be for the end of January. And we have about 18% of the budget remaining for non-salary items, contracted services and things. We encumber the contracted services that we know for the year. So as we go through the year, we draw that down. Our payroll system's not integrated into our general ledger, but our accounts payable is. So that's much easier to track and draw down. So you'll see the encumbrances in the non-salary items. You know, based on where we are there and getting reimbursements from the state and circuit breaker, we're doing fine there as well. Just as a note to the side, special education program and tuitions had very good months in September and January, but we've started off February kind of busy, so it looks like we'll be moving back to closer to that level. You know, if I gave this report on 129, there'd be a bigger smile on my face for how we were going to end the year, and you know what we might be doing with any leftover funds, i.e. textbooks, computers, all those things that we always want to do, but we don't always have funds to do in the budget. The next page is the grant summary. Again, you'll see the expenditures kind of lead the revenue. I know that feels counterintuitive. You usually want to spend the money after you get it, but that's not the way the state grant process works. They give you one payment, then you have to spend it down, and you put in claims, and they keep sending you the money after you've already expended it. So it's a good supplement, but you have to have cash on reserve to be able to actually float the program. And you know, so far all of those programs, it doesn't look like we're going to overspend any of our grants at this point. Last page is our revolving funds. These are our enterprise and endeavor type funds. They all have a specific purpose, you know, starting with summer school, going all the way down to the last fund that we created was the rental coordinator fund. We only have a couple of funds where we're in the negative. The adult education program, which also our driver's ed program is in there. We had to train some staff, which contracted our course offerings in the fall to get some new certified instructors. That endeavor was successful, so now we can expand our course offering and recoup the revenues, and we should be able to do that before the fiscal year closes. The other program, the alternative evening program, is a program that's a little bit difficult to keep in the black. On this on this page alone, you know, we can get some fees and recoup some expenses, but really it also serves another purpose to keep kids to finish their education without sending them to an outside placement or tuition-driven collaborative or private school. So even though this may show up as a negative here of $6,900, you know, it could be a lot more going into the general fund if we were paying the tuition. So don't let this cost alarm you too much. And that's it for the second quarter financial update, and hopefully folks are getting comfortable with the financial reports. I know it's a newer format, but hopefully it's working out.
Comments or questions? Mrs. Kelly?
It actually isn't a question. First of all, I wanted to commend you on the format. I totally appreciate the summary, because sometimes it's hard to look at these numbers and try and figure out what does it all mean. So the fact that you, using words, highlight what's going on with the numbers, and then provide both the operational budget, the grants, and the revolving fund. This is certainly an enhancement over quarterly updates or even monthly updates that we've had in previous years, and I appreciate you bringing this to us. I would additionally ask, if it isn't already, to have the first and second quarter reports that are like this posted on the website, just so that people can see that, you know, this gives you sort of the overview of where the school budget is. So thank you very much for this. I appreciate it.
May I add to Mrs. Kelly's point that each month Mr. Gillis gives our building principals in our leadership meetings their monthly reports where they are to date. So they're responsible for the public to understand for their text materials and supplies line, and they have to monitor their money. And again, there are sign-offs by Mr. Gillis, but again, it gives them ownership in pacing every month and looking out for the taxpayers' dollar. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Mr. Gillis.
So the next item I want to touch base isn't listed here, but I think we need to address it, and that is special town meeting. We have a special town meeting that starts a week from Monday. One of the articles in that special town meeting is to decrease a good majority of departments' budgets from their present appropriation. And we have been, I think, hearing different numbers back and forth, so I guess I'd like to put on the table what we understand to be the numbers as they are now, and how the Milton Public Schools will figure out how to cut that amount of dollars. So I'm not sure how we want to present that. Mary, do you have the, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head.
We just got a new number.
I'm sorry?
We just got a new number.
I know, which is,
So do you want to address what, I apologize. Did you address what this memo from the warrant, that we got from the warrant committee as of last night?
I'm not sure.
But,
It's the new
well, this is what I understand, Ms. Kelly, that we've been asked by the warrant committee to present a level funded budget. And we've worked with the finance subcommittee. And at our last school committee, we presented, if we were given a level funded budget, what the cuts would be. So then we've had discussions with the warrant committee, and we all attend the department head meetings. And there were discussions that anywhere from $240,000 to $800,000, special town meeting in February, the warrant committee was going to put forward that amount of money should be withheld in the FY10 budget, divided among all the departments. And what was sent to you today was, as of last night, the warrant committee voted, is it $240,000 they're going to propose being withheld from all of the budgets. What that means is the Milton Public Schools FY10 budget will have to be reduced by $151,000 of that $240,000. So we got word of that today. And again, I have a presentation tonight, but putting it in the context, as Mrs. Kelly said, of words, if we didn't have the stimulus funds, we'll be able to use our stimulus funds for this $151,000. But if we are level funded, that will be 3 additional positions to the already 24 that we have to eliminate next year if we're level funded. So to Mr. Pavlicek's point at each meeting, again, this year, if we didn't have the stimulus funds, 3 positions would have to be eliminated now, mid-year. We're going to have to, because of the stimulus funds, we can defer those cuts and reductions until June. But we now will be cutting, if we're level funded, the 24 positions. This is going to make us $150,000 below level funding from what we have this year.
For FY11. For FY11.
Yes.
Yeah.
Plus the 100.
Well, I mean, what it means is we were holding on to some of our stimulus money to mitigate the cuts we would have to make in the FY11 budget. If we use $150,000 of the stimulus money that we were going to hold into next year to fund the reduction that we're going to get at the special town meeting, it makes it unavailable to use for next year. And so we will have to make further cuts. I mean, it's not that our budget for next year is going to change, but we were planning to make our budget for next year with some one-time funds, being some carryover of stimulus funds. And now they're not going to be available because they're going to be needed to get us through this year. So it means we're going to have to, it just defers the cut is what you're saying, which is true. It's going to defer a $150,000 cut instead of trying to do it in the last 4 months of this year to doing it for next year. But it is going to affect our fiscal 11 budget.
And it's going to mean 3 more positions eliminated.
But also, if you hadn't saved that money as an administration, the stimulus money for next year, it would mean far greater than 3 cuts at this time of year. It would be 6 or 7 teachers that would be cut immediately after town meeting in order to
If to that point, we work with the finance subcommittee on making these decisions. But for the public to know, there is a neighboring community who in October and November had to eliminate 6 or 7 positions, and teaching positions for just this kind of work that was being done and these kind of cuts.
and maybe the precursor to us saying, let's hold back on that stimulus money, was we wrote a grant out that presented different ways that we wanted to enhance and increase student achievement for kids that were being educated today, but also going forward. We wanted to implement some things that would roll us forward as well. So we've put those on hold. We've put any spending of the money on hold, and now we're saying we're going to be able to fill this additional hole that has come up in the FY10 budget using those funds. So, I mean, I think it's good that we have guarded our resources, and we've sort of looked at the landscape and said that we are in uncertain financial times, and it's prudent for us to hold back. But it's quite unfortunate that we now have, kids that could utilize that additional student achievement help that we haven't been able to put that money towards.
These funds are one-time funds.
Correct. Which is a whole other issue. And so I'm just wondering, as a school committee, whether we should take a vote to approve the reduction of our FY10 budget by whatever the final tally amount is. Do we have that? 151,000?
151.
Is that something that we think that we need to take as a school committee before we go into town meeting? Because I'm not sure.
Can we discuss that? Because if the total for the town is 240,000, is that?
246, I think it was. What was?
And
41 and
240.
change,
Yeah.
I think.
I didn't print that out, I'm sorry.
It says $241,000.
Okay.
And then we're taking 150 of that. I think the way that we were given money, or we were,
63.
help me formulate these thoughts. We were given money based on the money, the percentage that we got from the override last year. This is greater than half that we're taking here. Is that the same
Famous last
exact?
fall. It was 63% from the fall town meeting.
Okay.
And so in our discussions at the Finance Subcommittee, there was some question about how $40,000 worth of the cut was going to be handled. Did we get any answers on that? No. Okay. So
The cut that came to the town of Milton came in two pots. Some of it was a reduction in payment in lieu of taxes for the Blue Hills, which is just general assistance. And 40,000 of it or so was a further cut in Quinn bill money, or for the police. In the fall, the police absorbed the Quinn bill cuts and the town split the rest. That doesn't appear to be what's in this spreadsheet that we got in the mail. So, but again, part of it is, I don't know, the $240,000 worth of cuts, to my knowledge, have still not been approved by the legislature. I mean, they were proposed cuts by the governor back in December. The legislature hasn't taken it up yet. So I think one of the things we'll have to talk about at town meeting is what is the contingency if, in fact, this is not approved by the legislature. I mean, we don't want to lose money, and then, if for some reason the 9C cuts don't come through,
Right.
it has to be we need a way to put this back.
Recoup it.
And I think, based on what had happened before, they were talking about putting money in the reserve fund, because until I think you can't have an article, I don't think, that says we're going to make it pursuant to 9C cuts if there have not yet, in fact, been any 9C cuts. So it's a question for council as to how they're wording it. But I know they were thinking of depositing it at least temporarily in the reserve fund. So we just need to get some clarification on how this is all going to happen.
So then, I believe there was an email that said that we have a potential meeting date with the warrant committee, which is the
February
8th
17th,
17th?
Week from tomorrow.
A week from
Wednesday.
tomorrow.
Would it not be
Okay.
prudent
So-
to wait before we take any votes?
So it might be advantageous to wait until
To
that
wait.
Till we
meeting
have
to take a vote.
discussions on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Okay, great.
I won't be able to make that meeting. Next Wednesday is a Monday, and I teach Monday nights.
That's Wednesday, isn't it?
So
Wednesday's
then,
a Monday.
to
It's
that
the
point, we
holiday.
do have a
Finance
finance
meeting.
subcommittee meeting
Wednesday morning.
Wednesday morning. Okay, so we could try and do some research
Yeah.
as to how we could deal with that issue and bring it to the finance subcommittee for Wednesday. Does that make sense?
So we'll meet that Wednesday morning and then at night with the warrant committee. Right, makes sense.
And so the other thing that we wanted to talk about was just where are we with the FY11 budget? We did go over, I think, at last meeting, the individual cuts, but as has been mentioned in previous discussions tonight, we now need to add additional positions to this because we're now cutting our FY10 sort of level dollar. And so I think it makes sense for us just to review, maybe in a quick sense, what's on the cut list, and then we don't have identified positions for the additional 3 positions that we're talking about, but we just want people to remember that we have a list and we have to unfortunately add to that list.
Exactly. So briefly, Mr. Gillis is going to go over the financial page, and then we've summarized the cuts and reductions for the public. And I'm going to briefly go through those cuts and reductions.
Bear with me a minute. Looks like we have a folder.
So while that's, I just wanted to review that we have sent the warrant committee the budget binders, so they have the information. Leroy was hoping to come to our meeting yesterday morning, but was unable to attend, so we will extend another invitation to the Wednesday morning meeting. We have asked the warrant committee as they review and come up with questions to, funnel them through Leroy and forward them to us so that we'll be able to come prepared to warrant committee next Wednesday with the answers that have already been, to the questions that have already been formulated.
And Ms. Kelly had asked us to, and I believe Ms. Quinn sent out the PTO meeting dates.
We didn't get that yet.
So the PTO, they're supposed to go out to you, and then we'll get a consensus. I said if we could get 2 or 3 school committee members to go with us to each PTO meeting, and we'll present the budget presentation. Mr. Gillis has created a budget presentation that we're going to review and edit tomorrow, send to the finance subcommittee, and decide. Does that look smaller?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not that page.
Go to the
Matt,
next page.
Yeah.
Can we?
Last time, was that larger on the screen?
You know what? I can modify that.
It's better. Oh, that's it. Good. Do you just want to run through that briefly?
Sure. Since we're in the education business and repetition is the mother of all learning, we're going to go through this one more time just to make sure everybody's on the same page here. Well, laser pointer's not going to cooperate. In step 1, we start out with a budget of $33,086,000. In step 2, at October's special town meeting, we subtracted $110,591, which gave us a new budget of $32,976. Step 3, we're looking at a cut, and when we created this, that number was up in the air, but we're looking now at a cut of $151,000, which would lower that $32,900 down to about $32,825 for next year to be our level funding starting point for fiscal 11. So as we lower fiscal year 10, even though we were carrying things forward, everything that we started the year with forward, it makes it harder to keep all those services for the following year. So the level service budget, which is where we built everything, bringing everybody forward, plus adding teachers for enrollment and to address our achievement issues, was $35,533,000. We were going to carry forward a balance from our recovery funds from the state fiscal stabilization funds. That's in the yellow box right over here. We got $1,123,000 from the state because the state was not doing its share of meeting our foundation education budget. The state determines a minimum that you're required to spend. They give you a percentage, and then the town has to pay their percentage. And it's different in each community. The floor for the state, over the last 5 years, the funding floor was 17.5%, and they were working to get up there, and this year they finally did do it. And so from our state fiscal stabilization funds, we've already taken the $110,000 from the October special town meeting cuts. We take the $150,000 if those cuts are passed at town meeting, and we do actually have to use them from the February town meeting. And we hired several staff. We hired a kindergarten teacher, a third grade teacher, and some class size aides. We'd carry that money forward for next year. We intend to rehire the same staff, at least at the onset, and that would leave us a carryover balance of 538. Obviously, that would get lowered by the 150. You can only spend the money arguably once. And so, you know, that's about the summary of the recovery money. We'd cut the 4 new teachers that we put in the budget for a level up service. We'd also bring over our other stimulus money. In fiscal year 11, we got some special education money, both $757,000 for this year and $755 for fiscal 11. We hadn't spent most of that money because we weren't so sure we were going to get it early on in the budget process. But we do have a letter, and that's posted on the DOE website, that we're getting those funds, and so is everybody else. That's about it for the recap, and then Mary's going to come over and
I'll stay right here if you just pull it up.
sure, and go over the reductions with you once again.
Just gets worse.
We made the budget presentation, and we presented what the 24.4 FTE cuts or reductions are going to be, and we gave detailed impact statements. Those are on the web. The Finance Subcommittee asked if we would tonight just summarize in another version what these, if we're level funded, if the Milton Public Schools are level funded next year, working with the leadership team, the Finance Subcommittee, presenting to the teachers and actually seeing these individuals and meeting with them and letting them know if it's a level funded budget next year, these are our proposed cuts and reductions. At the elementary level, 12.8 positions. An assistant principal at the Glover, we have a 0.5 assistant principal. At the Glover School, that position will be eliminated, not filled. Classroom specialist teachers, 5.2. That's the elementary. If you go back, Matt, I believe I can detail those. The classroom, I see what you're doing. Excuse me. You can go ahead. All right, so we've summarized the elementary specialist. Again, we have to meet the contract with art, music, library, PE, but the school committee and the public, especially elementary parents, know that we tried to restore music this year, exchanging a position. Again, no increase to the budget. We're going to have to bring back the art, music, library, and gym to only meet the teacher contract. That's elimination of a 0.6 music, perhaps music teacher who's working in the Milton Public Schools now. We spoke to the public and explained to the school committee. John Phelan and Gracie Burke are chairing the World Language Committee. We've given them the charge for them to look at the elementary program and, again, to maximize the tax dollar, to look for at least 2 FTE cuts in classroom teachers. Again, we have 2 small classes at the Tucker. We presented to the parents. There's a spectrum of possibilities. We have a small 4th and 5th grade, whether we do a cross-grade teacher situation. Again, there's a number of options that committee's looking at, and at the beginning of March, they'll be making their recommendations to the superintendent and the school committee. Looking at full-day kindergarten with the NESDEC projections and Mr. Gillis's projections, we believe that out of the Milton Public School budget, we can save 1 full-day kindergarten teacher. We'll be reporting that to you all through March and April, watching those kindergarten and 1st grade numbers. Also at the elementary, based on enrollment, children aging out, you understand 5th grade is going to 6th grade, where we have 3 language-based teachers at the Collycott School. We believe the population can be serviced with 2. Same teacher-pupil ratio, but with 2 teachers. At the preschool, you remember these schools were built to have 2 preschool classrooms. Our preschool has grown into 4.5 teachers, and we believe with the projected enrollment that we can reduce a 0.5 preschool teacher. ACE, our art enrichment program, again, bringing every single program back to just meeting the contract. This is a very successful, again, along with future problem solving, and the ACE program for children at the elementary level. They're wonderful, enriching programs, but we're going to have to eliminate that program at a 0.1 FTE. The kindergarten aides, we discussed with the kindergarten parents, and again, we spoke to, when Mr. Lovely was chair, the charge that the full-day kindergarten program would not cost the taxpayer. So between tuitions and the grant from the state, it's fully funded, the full-day program, the second part of the program, but we have full-day kindergarten aides. We're going to reduce those aides to half-time aides in the full-day kindergarten classrooms and reducing the part of the aides that come out of the school budget. At the Pierce School, Mr. Phelan, do you want to address those two positions and the impact of those two reductions?
The first reduction is one full-time assistant principal. In reorganizing the schools, supervising unit last year, we changed how we use our Unit B folks at the middle, elementary, and high school to put a real emphasis on the curriculum leadership at the Pierce Middle School. This assistant principal position is your traditional running the whole grade, doing discipline. It is a very important position. We don't want to minimize the impact of this position being reduced at the Pierce. The middle school has always been a place where parents have felt like it's a great jump for their students and their children at a very unique age or time in their life, and have always felt that it's been a great, safe environment to learn. So this is a difficult reduction for us to make, but we feel that leading forward with the curriculum leadership, that the school being on corrective action is better served in that capacity. Again, attempting to stay away from the classroom and trying to diversify the reductions that we have. If you notice at the end of tonight's presentation that there will be reductions in administration, minimal to classroom instruction, and to non-union and support staff as well. So we do have a broad spectrum of reductions. The social studies teacher reduction, due to the class size in the team grades in 7 and 8 into next year's projecting the enrollment, that the class size is favorable in the core subjects throughout the teams, and by reducing the social studies teacher, we may be able to be a little more efficient with how we have those classes and raise the class size a little bit. It would be difficult to take an exploratory teacher, for example, because they already have 29 to 33 students in drama and art and other courses. So social studies of the 4 core subjects, we are choosing because it's not a testable subject right now as math, English, and science is. And quite frankly, we think it's an efficient reduction. It will impact people's ability to interact with their team teachers. This teacher would have to go between teams or between grades. It would not be available like all teachers are normally available to our parents right now to have full team meetings like they do at the Pierce Middle School on a regular basis. So these are significant cuts, although there are only 2 of them.
And to Mr. Phelan's point, we prioritize the teacher in front of the students. And so, again, there are cuts in administration, there are cuts in support positions and aides. At the high school, the director of guidance is being eliminated, and the finance subcommittee has asked, again, this is going to have an impact on the guidance department at the high school. We said when these positions are eliminated, this is going to require other individuals to do more work and increase their load. It's going to impact services to children. It's going to impact response time to parents, work with teachers and administrators within the district. But again, we looked at every single level, and 24.4 positions is an impact to the Milton Public Schools, and it's going to impact instruction and achievement. The Family and Consumer Studies, that's where the one cut of one teacher at Milton High School will be. And we spoke the last time that a non-negotiable for me is I believe that every Milton Public School parent wants their child at Milton High School engaged in 7 periods a day. I do not believe any Milton Public School parent wants their child in a study hall. And so I shared with the subcommittee that we're at the breaking point with electives. You saw Barbara Polanski talk to you about 15 students serving as interns in the science department. Again, Family and Consumer Studies, this teacher, the stations are limited. You remember we used to have a wood and an auto teacher. Now we have one wood/auto. We now have one cooking and one sewing teacher. This will be one cooking/sewing teacher. Those are the reductions at Milton High School. The reduction district-wide, we're reducing a 0.5 of our current data system specialist. Classroom aides, we're going to have to look carefully to make this cut, and so that it doesn't impact any IEPs, special education programming. In professional development, we're going to take a $55,000 cut. You remember our presentations on professional development, just like our presentation on technology. We don't spend beyond the state average. Those are valuable dollars in professional development. In ELE, English teacher, we believe, again, looking at the population moving up, that we're going to be able to make a 0.6 FTE reduction in our ELE staffing system-wide. We have a full-time registrar. We spoke to you about that reorganization. We believe that we can reduce that position by 0.5. Mr. Gillis spoke to you about an electricity reduction of $75,000 that Ms. Sheridan sits on that committee, and working with the staff in every school and every classroom, we'll be able to make that savings. And we're going to reduce a 1 FTE custodian in the Milton Public Schools, which will impact, again, the cleanliness/maintenance of the buildings. Those positions total 20.4 FTEs. To Mrs. Kelly's point, if in fact we go to special town meeting and we have to reduce $150,000, we'll go back with Finance Subcommittee, the leadership team, and have to make 3 additional cuts for next year.
And those most likely, Ms. Gormley, as you said before, would come from, they'd have to go into the classrooms at some point in time.
Which we've tried to. If anyone looks at this and after they've seen the presentation and they're in discussions with us, they understand those cuts are very sombering. I can tell by the mood of the group, but we try to put the teacher in front of the children in the classroom.
Mrs. Kelly?
Thank you very much for that presentation. I just wanted to say that in addition to just sort of getting materials together, the administration is working on a PowerPoint presentation that we would present at the meeting with the warrant committee. So I guess I would ask, just from a procedural perspective, if when you folks are satisfied with it, sometime hopefully tomorrow, that it gets sent out to all members, and that all members review it and send their feedback through Bev, so that we can get to something that's really cohesive closer to Wednesday, rather than waiting for a Wednesday Finance Subcommittee to make revisions. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I had one more thing.
Yes, you did. But
Yes, I
did
did,
you?
which I did.
One second, I'm
That's all
sorry.
right, go
Did you?
ahead.
Okay.
No, if it's around finance, why don't you go ahead, because this is really off, really not on finance topic, so.
All right, I wanted to mention that last Thursday I attended a meeting of the Suburban Coalition up in Needham, up in Newton. It's a group that I've worked with before. I've attended their meetings years ago when I was chairing the warrant committee. And it's basically a collection of towns that get together for lobbying the legislature. They tend to be towns between 128 and 495 for the most part. Towns, in many cases like ourselves, with problems similar to ourselves. And what they had a presentation from Noah Berger, who's the executive officer of Mass Budget and Policy Council, which is an independent budget analysis group that has for years taken to analyzing the various different pieces of the mass budget. And he did a very good presentation on how the state has gotten to where it is over the last 10 years and trends and so forth and so on, which I won't go into here. But he did a presentation on the governor's budget. And since we're talking about, or the governor's proposed budget for fiscal 2011, and since we're talking about here, the possibility of being level funded for next year, it's worth it to see what's sort of on the horizon. The governor put out his budget proposal week, 10 days ago, which based on the local aid money numbers that were in it, would actually put Milton in a position not to have to level fund all the town departments. It would actually give the town something on the order of $1 million above level funding if those numbers were to hold in terms of local aid. And so one of the things that this presentation was on was, on one hand, the question of how likely is it that those numbers could hold? I mean, what assumptions, based on revenue assumptions, were they based on? And secondly, there were a collection of legislators there who were there to answer the question, how likely is it that you'll go along with the recommendations that are in the governor's budget? And Noah did a very good job of going through the assumptions that were in that budget of where extra revenue is coming from and so forth. There's a certain amount of money that's going to be expected from federal stimulus money again in next year, and the indications are that that's a reasonable expectation. But some of the other issues that were in that budget, probably the biggest one that's of some question, is that there are roughly $200 million in new taxes in the governor's budget proposal. Now, some of them could easily stand. I mean, I wasn't aware, for instance, that although you pay sales tax on a car, you don't pay sales tax if you buy a jet plane. And so they were closing that loophole. I don't know how many jet planes the state sells, but that was estimated for about $5 million. That one might hold, but for instance, the proposal to extend the sales tax to candy and soda, despite the public health benefits of it, according to the legislators there at least, is dead on arrival. Just because they're not interested in raising taxes this year in the current economy. And frankly, that a sales tax for whatever purpose is a regressive tax. People with low incomes spend more of their income and therefore spend a higher percentage of their income on sales tax than people who have high incomes and don't spend it all and invest some and therefore don't pay sales tax on that portion of it. So